Great. So thank you for coming, everybody. My name is Ivo Jensen. I'm a solution architect with AWS and the nonprofit team. And today we're going to talk about customer outreach. We're going to talk about customer outreach in the context of traditional call centers, modern data strategies for modern messaging. We're going to tie them together, show how they integrate with other AWS services. All going to do that in 20 minutes. I'm already counting down. And if I have some time left, we'll talk about some Gen AI improvements to contact centers as well, because after all, this is reInvent 2023, so it always fits in there, right? So I'm part of the nonprofit team. That means I work with nonprofits, often donor-based organizations, membership-based organizations, and they often have a need for call centers to call in, as you can imagine. So while this talk has a slight focus on nonprofit, because that's where I come from, it's really applicable to everything, right? So let's talk a bit on how we got here, right? So if you look at nonprofits, what are some of the top challenges that we see with fundraising? It's donor engagement, donor fatigue, donor retention. And so how do we address those challenges, right? In that same study, 2023 Fundraising Outlook report, we're looking at some technology investments there as well. And what we see is organizations do place increased budget on donor management and marketing automation. So that's really a prime way for technology, for cloud technology, for AWS to come in and make a difference. So let's start with some of the more traditional ways of doing customer outreach, which is call centers, right? So some of the common questions that we hear are like, how can I innovate quicker, right? I have this static call center. How can I innovate? How can I introduce new features, maybe based on machine learning, into my call center to improve customer satisfaction? And how can I do this? How can I launch these new features without breaking the bank? How can I do that without buying whole new modules and doing this in a cost-effective way? And so we commissioned a study where we had customers who had already migrated from into our contact center solution, Amazon Connect, and we asked them, so what are some of the challenges you faced previously? And some of the common themes that we heard was we're looking at expensive legacy solutions that are often siloed. So in order to actually get this together, you had to go to multiple vendors and stitch these solutions together yourself. It's hard to then also experiment with new technologies and make all that stuff elastic. And by elastic, I mean easy to scale up and scale down. And as you know, at Amazon, at AWS, elasticity is a core concept of how we deal with our compute. So how do we get to Amazon Connect? So let's do a quick step back here. So Amazon.com at large, the motto is we strive to be Earth's most customer-centric company. And so in the retail business, we had a need to build these, to do customer outreach, customer support. So we weren't happy with the status quo. We actually built our own software solution. Now having about over 100,000 agents worldwide, serving millions of customers, dozens of languages, right? So we built a technology stack, and then what we did in 2017 is bring this to market as an AWS service, and that's Amazon Connect. So with Amazon Connect, we now try to address all those challenges that we faced previously. So first of all, it's really easy to get started. It's just another AWS service in the console. You go to Connect in the console. You can provision a brand new call center in literally minutes. You click a button, start project, your telephony gets provisioned for you. You can, in a graphical way, then build a call flow with some IVR, agent transfers, all the features that you need. And so this is really built from the ground up as a holistic solution that can address all these challenges. And in great Amazon AWS fashion, it's pay only for what you use, so there's no upfront cost, just pay for the call minutes that you need to do, and it can easily scale up. So you start with that small POC, and it easily scales up to thousands of agents. So in that same study that I mentioned of people who had migrated to Connect, We got some great results that customers mentioned, shortened average handle time up to 15%. This is due, amongst others, by having this integrated call analytics stuff, so there's less after-call work for the agents to do. And we'll dive into that a little bit more, how we did that. And another benefit is a significantly reduced admin effort, because we built this product to be very user-friendly with graphical drawings of your contact flows. So no wonder that we have a lot of customers using Connect, from all the way from small companies who love the fact that you can start small, experiment, don't have to do any upfront cost, to large companies who really enjoy that you can experiment with new features and have that elasticity to scale up and scale down. I told you I was a non-profit SA, so think about a non-profit like, for instance, Red Cross, who has a large need for call centers in hurricane season, and that scales up quite quickly. You don't even know when these hurricanes are going to hit, right? So we need to be able to scale up as demand grows, and then when blue skies come around, we have to scale down as well. Right, so integrated solution, right, where previously you might have to go to different vendors to stitch these components together. This is a holistic solution. So let's go through a journey of a call. A call comes in. Even before we go to the first agent, we can plug in some machine learning to do some analysis on the voice already. We can do, for instance, do sentiment analysis. Is the customer happy? Is the customer bad? What are they prompting the IVR system and the way that they talk to an automated response even before you go to an agent? And so then by the time that gets transferred to an agent, we can pull in the customer's system of record. We can maybe transfer the caller to an agent appropriate with the sentiment of the caller. And then when the agent sits in there, it can integrate with the system of records to have a full view of the customer during that call. Adam Selipsky in the keynote on Tuesday, he mentioned our great partnership with Salesforce. So there's a good Salesforce integration between Amazon Connect and Salesforce to have that Salesforce data right there on the agent screen. And then after the call is over, we have some innovations in doing post-call work, where all the logs, the call transcripts, the call logs, all the information about the call duration, go automatically into S3 for further analysis. So this whole journey is basically handled by Amazon Connect with pay-as-you-go pricing and easy scalability. Skip through this one. Okay. So that's traditional call centers, right? It's phone calls, and as you probably are yourself, and as proven by 85% of smartphone users, you don't like to be called anymore. So we got to talk about modern digital ways of outreach. So instead of doing calls, find new digital channels, build that content, but also the message that you send them have to be personalized. Otherwise, you're just sending a bland, generic message, and that doesn't help with positive outreach. And so when you do that and you build all that, build these digital campaigns, you need to measure your goal against your goals as well. So to do that, we have a complementary product to Amazon Connect called Amazon Pinpoint. So Amazon Connect is the call center, the voice calls. Pinpoint focuses on digital communications through text, through push, through email, custom channels, and yes, also through voice. So where we can interact with Amazon Connect to do outbound calling in a very targeted way. Right. So Pinpoint can be used in many ways: reminders, notifications, maybe a marketing campaign in there, and then maybe even a stepping stone for a two-way conversation into a support chat. So let's talk a little bit more about that targeting of audiences. Right? So it starts with who gets these communications. So segmentation is very important, and we'll get in the next slide a little bit closer on how we do that segmentation. So you have your customer list in your system of record, and got to figure out which part of your system is part of this next campaign. And then what do you send them? Step 2, it's got to be a personalized message. Right? And the next slide will dive a little bit deeper on how we have some of these approaches to personalization. So between the who and the what, we can then build these campaigns that build this outreach, and it can be a journey, a workflow over time that reaches out to customers in a holistic workflow. And of course, everything we do can be measured, so there's insights coming out of that as well. So a little bit more about segmentation. Think about properties of people. They can be static. It could be their location, where they live. It could be dynamic or evolving over time. For instance, their interests, right? So if you have a sports app, and a person likes soccer, but mostly on the weekend, and seems to view a lot of Brazilian soccer, then we can feed that back into the tagging structure for that segmentation to say like, okay, we're going to target that user with international soccer news, but not so much during the week, and we'll focus on some Brazilian players there, right? So we do that, we build that campaign over time in a workflow. So, so think about a hotel booking as example. The straightforward way would be, yes, we'll send you a confirmation message when your hotel is booked, but that workflow, that journey stretches out all through the whole life cycle of that stay. So day of check-in, we get some messages. Day of checkout, we get some messages. And then even maybe a week after the follow-up, we can figure out like, okay, let's do a survey or something, right? So that whole journey can be built into Pinpoint as a holistic flow with engagement numbers. And yes, Pinpoint has quite a bit of volume. We send billions of messages, trillions of push notifications. This is, we know how to do scale at Amazon. So again, to wrap that up, right? Audience management, personalization, segmentation, build that in your campaigns, and outreach through your digital channels, through email, through SMS, or maybe even through voice. And I'm going to give you an example for that. Lots of customers, I'm a non-profit, so I focus on public sector, but this is really applicable to all industries. Right. Let me give you an example of how we could combine these, right? So how can we combine these various services together, where in Pinpoint, you build the segmentation and you build the outreach campaign. That campaign can then feed into Amazon Connect outbound dialing. So Amazon is not just, Connect is not just inbound, as much as well outbound dialing. So you build the journey in the campaign in Pinpoint, and then you hand it over Connect for outbound. And then the outbound can be dialing. We can have a contact flow with checking for a voicemail box. If it's a voicemail, we might leave a message or do nothing at all, and then eventually transfer to a live agent. Right? So that integration in the Amazon ecosystem is important. Right? So you can stay and take advantage of all the components in the Amazon AWS ecosystem. So not just Pinpoint and Connect, but there's a couple of services here that I already mentioned actually. So Amazon Comprehend for, well, first Amazon Transcribe for speed to text, right? So to build those call logs. Amazon Comprehend, which is a machine learning service to do sentiment analysis and keyword matching. So is the customer happy? Is the customer mad? We'll actually get a score that you can use for your routing. And Amazon Personalize, which is think about Amazon.com. Hey, you've bought this. Other customers have bought that. Are you interested in this? You can apply the same principles through our AI service, Amazon Personalize, to build these personalized campaigns in Pinpoint. Give you another example. This is a little bit more non-profit focused again. Again, I'm a non-profit SA. So how can you, how could the integrated architecture look like if you have a website for donor engagement, or if you're a membership-based organization for memberships, right? So a lot of services here. We'll actually go through them one by one real quick. So a user logs in. We have an identity provision provider service called Cognito as an Amazon service. User logs into our system and then lands on our website. Website could be built, for instance, with Amazon Amplify. Could be your on-prem hosted website, we don't really care, right? And then once you're landed in the website, there's an option to go either a chatbot route or contact a live agent. So if you go to chatbot route, Amazon Lex is the service here to integrate with. That's a chatbot service. If you want to go the live caller side, we can plug into Amazon Connect. And again, since the user is already logged in, the system knows who that user is when the call transfers. So we can pass that information on and do all the things that we talked about earlier. Amazon Lex can then integrate with like a Lambda to go to the system of record, like a Salesforce or a Bloomerang or a Blackbot or anything like that. And of course, analytics in there as well. This is the time to take a picture. Now I'm complete. Okay, a couple minutes left. So I thought, this is, again, reInvent 2023. What are we doing with generative AI in this space? Adam Selipsky touched on this a little bit during his keynote. We, of course, launched Amazon Q as a huge new service that integrates with a whole bunch of Amazon and AWS services. But I want to focus on 3 generative AI innovations where we can provide value in customer outreach. First one, expanding the agent capabilities. Right? So when the agent is on the call with the customer in a call, the customer text can be prompted in these large language models, in these Gen AI models, to provide feedback. Now, I would recommend at this point in stage to keep that agent in the loop. You know, we still have some issues with refining these models to make sure that they give accurate data, they give safe data, and it all stays. We don't give him wrong data, basically. So that's important to keep that agent in the loop for now. Second outcome is enhancing the manager task. Right? So this ties into lowering that average handle time for the customer. If the agent doesn't have to summarize a call, we can just dump the whole transcript straight into a Gen AI model. That summarization can happen under the hood. The agent doesn't have to worry about that. And then third, this is, I think, a great interactive experience, innovation that is going to change the world in terms of chatbots. A lot of we all deal with chatbots in our real life, a little clunky, and I think Gen AI is really going to change that landscape. Right, so how do we do that? Basically, dump all the data that you have and train and fine-tune your models with that, right? So all your customer data, all of your stuff, your system of record, you can add that to the model. And in AWS fashion, and you've heard this in the various keynotes, a big point here is privacy. When you fine-tune an FM or an LLM, that data stays in your VPC, in your account. It won't leak into the base model. Other companies won't suddenly, on a prompt, suddenly get your IP out. So that's the Amazon security is our job number 0. So we're very focused on that. So dump all your company data in it and be assured it stays private, right? All the previous customer conversations as well. The model can learn from that. And then, of course, all your business data. If you're a non-profit like a blood bank, all the previous donation data. If you're a travel agency, all the routing data for the airlines, right? And then build that to solve those use cases that we talked about. So a couple considerations. The first one already talked about, right? Maintain customer trust and compliance. Keep that human in the loop for now, so you can make sure that the responses that are given are safe and trustworthy, and it's the right data that the agent can come back. I think we'll innovate over time in this particular area. Leverage and protect your IP. So again, put your private IP in there and feel safe and trusted that your data is safe with us, right? And then the last one, I would say, Gen AI is still new. Use it for your high-profile use cases. A lot of cases of simple chatbot interaction, like looking up a reservation or looking up when you can donate blood again, can be handled by the existing Amazon Lex chatbot type systems. That's the same slide. So we're here to help. I'm a solution architect, your entry point into AWS. There's a large ecosystem from training, programs, and then when you're at implementation phase, we have professional services to help you out, or one of our trusted Amazon Connect accredited implementation partners as well. I'll leave these up for a little bit after the talk for just like a minute or so, but the 2 reference architectures I showed are listed here in the middle. You can read a little bit more about some of the Gen AI improvements that we're making to customer contact centers. So with that, I want to wrap it up. Again, thank you for your attention. Name is Ivo Jensen. Come talk to me and have a great reInvent. Thank you.